surprised LA dominated Minnesota here.
Of course not. I mean, listen, Stafford and McVay in the postseason are no joke. I mean, this is now their 6th playoff game together. We can show you Stafford's. They're 5-1. The one loss was by 1 point on the road to an excellent Lions team. Stafford's numbers are insane. 111 rating, 5-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, almost 300 yards passing per game.
Yeah.
And then you pair it with a defense that yesterday I was trying to say, I'm throwing out Week 18 for a lot of these teams. I think that's fair. They haven't allowed 10 points in 4 straight games. Haven't allowed 10. They've held 4 straight teams to single digits. I understand we were like, yeah, well, the Niners were not considered a totally incompetent team. The Cardinals were not considered a totally incompetent offense. That was the Jets. And the Jets were, and the Jets at the end of the year was when supposedly, right? It was cold. I get that.
One was cold. One was rain.
I get it. But last night was, and so listen, this team has all the pieces and brew, and this is where I will give Sean McVay credit. Sean McVay said, I will take our chances with whomever we play with a fresh, as healthy as possible team versus the best possible matchup with a potentially banged up or tired team, which when you have an older offense, I think you saw it because that offense while the defense was great the last month of the year, the offense was not. And you saw, I thought Stafford looked awesome yesterday, and that's a scary team.
Well, that's what surprised me. You mentioned Stafford, and he has been great in the playoffs. But like I've been saying this for a week or so, the last 3 games.
He was not.
Regular season, right. 1 touchdown, 1 pick, like a passer rating below 80.
Yeah.
And then he comes out and looks great. And that first drive that set the tone for the whole game, even though they didn't continue to score as much. So I was surprised by Stafford's play just because of how he had looked recently. And then that defense. And you're right. Like, they haven't, 8 points a game over the last 4 games, 3 of them non-playoff teams. I kind of wrote it off as that because the defense hadn't been great this year.
But it's young, and so they're getting better.
Yeah, they're getting better. Both of us like Verse, and, they've gotten better. And they have the second fewest sacks of any playoff team. All right? And they had 9 last night. So, I mean, that shocked me. Like, man, they got that type of pressure on Darnold like that. And so, yeah, they looked very good, and I was surprised by the overall.
Yeah. It's hard to say if I was surprised or not. I think I was surprised that this game wasn't competitive. But I'm not surprised how good the Los Angeles Rams looked. Because, this is something that me and Nick have always agreed on of how special Matthew Stafford is and how elite of a duo Stafford McVay is. And I've said this now multiple times recently, so I'll just, I'll repeat it very quickly, is like my biggest concern was, or my biggest question mark around Matthew Stafford is that he's an older quarterback. And so I do think he's elite and special, but I don't know if he has the ability to be consistently elite at this point in his career. He's just older, and I don't know how you age in that regard. Does that mean that you're going to be you're no longer elite, but you're just great? Or are you great and you can tap into being elite, 1 out of 3 times, 1 out of 4, whatever it may be. This is what I'm trying to get to, Matthew Stafford's career with the Rams. And this is what I've also said about Matthew Stafford, that Matthew Stafford, his career was essentially wasted in Detroit. And if he was able to get to Sean McVay earlier on and get to the Rams earlier on, or if he was just, younger, if he got to the Rams when he was 26, 27, whatever it is, 25, he would be an all-time great. I mean, you would be talking about Stafford in the same conversation as maybe not necessarily Tom Brady, but I don't know. I mean, it's Tom Brady's so tough because he obviously has the 7 rings and is really solidified. But you would probably talk about Stafford in the conversations of Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning. Would you say, hey, Tom Brady's the greatest? He has all the rings, but who's the most talented? You could make the argument that it's Stafford, that it's Aaron, right? Like, I think he would be part of those conversations. It's not shocking that he finally goes to an organization and a franchise that really has everything together with an obviously great coach, and then boom, you just have this instant success. I think, what was he, 0-4 with the Lions and 5-1 with the Rams. I mean, like, that's the real deal. That's the real deal. Matthew Stafford is special. He just is. But I still don't know at this point in his career, like, can he consistently tap into this throughout a playoff run? How will he play against Philly in the freezing cold? I think it's going to be like below, 30 degrees. Like, again, I don't know. And I'm not comfortable, making any, bold claims about, how someone is going to look like that. If Matthew Stafford was 27, I'd be like, oh man, he's going to continue to ball. Let's go. But I think the question mark is just his age. It's just easier for him to get banged up. The dude's got like 5 little girls, daughters, who's just like, don't get hurt, daddy. Like, like, it's just like, he's just living a different life right now. So, but he's coach, probably the second best coach in the NFL. But it's so fascinating. This game is so fascinating because, first off, that opening drive, like, from the jump was like, uh-oh. If you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, you're like, oh, the only thing that you can kind of think of is like, okay, it's the first drive. This is going to be their best punch. Stafford, McVay, this is good. This is supposed to be technically like the plays that they know. So, like, okay, these guys are wide open, like that, which was really impressive from McVay. And it's just like, because again, Stafford, even on that opening drive, like any quarterback, that's what I keep saying, like any quarterback could have, done that. It was just brilliant. They just were able to get after Minnesota. And so if you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, like, you're watching that game thinking like, all right, just the first drive, we just need to kind of now put up points on our first drive, and then like things will settle and slow down. That was their best punch. And then, here we go. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of the game. And it just obviously didn't unfold that way, especially because the Vikings couldn't necessarily do anything offensively, but the Vikings had a better third down conversion rate, more first downs. Like, they actually didn't necessarily play badly, because again, the Rams were 2 for 10 on third. They had 10 penalties. You're winning this game very convincingly, and you have 10 penalties. I'm kind of like, how are you doing that? So this game was really fascinating, and Stafford was 19 for 27, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 117 rating. And, Higbee was 5 for 58. Puka was 5 for 49. Kyron Williams had a touchdown. Allen touchdown. Like, it's not like this was like an onslaught. This wasn't like them piling on the points, piling on the stats, piling on everything, and just playing pristine, perfect ball. They're 9 for 12 on third down, like red zone. Like, that's not how this game unfolded. So it's like, it is fascinating because you do watch this game, and especially if you're watching at arm's length, you're like, oh, the Rams are better. Oh, the Rams dominated this game. And then when you actually really look at the stats, you're like, oh, wow, 2 for 10 on third down? Like, Matthew Stafford only 209 yards? Like, okay, interesting. They really only put up 20 points offensively. The one touchdown was, via the defense, and then you also had an extra possession, so you had 2 turnovers. So it's like, it was kind of fascinating game, which is why I think, like, going up against Philly is like, I'm still trying my best to kind of make sense of how I think that game will unfold. I've said this throughout this whole season. Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, and I kept saying Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, but at this point, I'm just kind of almost going to remove them and just leave it as Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay are just always going to be dangerous in the playoffs, and you will always be scared. If you're not scared of that duo, well, then you're just like, you're not paying attention close enough. So I think this game, how great they played, made sense. I think it's so interesting because I talked about this with the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs, how they just had their buys, and so now people are kind of like sleeping on them because you see the Baltimore Ravens, you see the Buffalo Bills, you see some like dominant, forceful wins, and you forget how great the Chiefs are, how great the Lions are, etc. And with the Rams, like, their season as a whole has always been difficult to kind of unpack because of all the injuries. And then when they finally got these guys healthy again, it takes a second for them to kind of get going. Then they get going. But then they played poorly the last few weeks. Like, they Niners have not been good. The Seattle Seahawks and the Cardinals, like, those teams were messes. Let's be honest. Like, they were not organized. They could not get anything going. And Matthew Stafford against the 49ers literally almost threw like 4 interceptions in the first quarter. He was like trying to give away that game. I mean, like, they won that game like 12-9 or something, like whatever it was, 12-6. Like, it was some bizarre score. So that could make some moves. And like, because even me, like during the season, I was like, no, once the Rams get healthy, they're going to be a good team. They're going to be a good team. Look out for them. I made a handful of videos like that. And then when I saw them play, I was kind of like, I believe in Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. And I'm like, this isn't looking how I think it's going to look. And then in the playoffs, they're like, no, this is what you've been saying. This is what you said all season. We just didn't show it yet. And it's like, they almost had that same effect of the bye effect with the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs, where it's just like, we're not playing as good as you think we are, but like, we are actually still this good. But to be fair, I could have said that about the Packers, and then the Packers didn't play good. The Packers did not show up. But that's a difference when you have Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, instead of Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur. You got two just high level coaching and quarterback play. And that's why it's kind of always the problem when you rank things. When you say Andy Reid's number 1 and Sean McVay's 2, and I'm making up a name right now. You know, I'm going to purposely make up a random name so you guys don't lose too much sleep over it. You know, the difference between, and to be very clear, I do not think Nick Sirianni is a top 4 coach. But like, you know, you put him there. I should have probably just said Mike McCarthy. But like the difference between 2 to 3 or 2 to 4 can legitimately be light years. Even though these coaches are doing a high level and a really good job, like it can truly be light years. And we only saw a couple teams, honestly, really come out with such intensity, such high level, high execution ball from the jump. And that was the Rams. And I really put that on coaching. The Vikings did not show up to play against the Lions, and they did not show up to play against the Rams. The Steelers, they were not ready to play. The Packers, not ready to play. I do not think the Eagles were ready to play. The Bills, the score was going to be 10-10 at half. Like they, that first half was not that exciting for the Bills. And I think the Ravens played really well, but it was just more because like we're better than you. We are just a better team than you. So like there's just nothing you can do. We're playing the Steelers. We're gonna win because we're just better, man. Best of luck. But it's nothing you try is going to work. The Rams and the Commanders came out with a level of intensity of like, this is playoffs. This is playoffs. If you watched all the other teams play, you could have said that that's a 1:00 game, on a Sunday. When you saw the Rams play and you saw the Commanders play, and honestly, probably even the Bucks, like you could see the intensity. You could see that the moment mattered, that they were all in and focused, ready to go. And that's the experience. That's even Dan Quinn's experience of like going to a Super Bowl. That's Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay's experience of obviously winning a Super Bowl, going to multiple Super Bowls. Like that stuff matters. It's high level coaching, high level culture, and that aspect of it can't be understated. And that's how you win a game 27-9, even though your quarterback only threw for 209 yards, 19 for 27, and 2 for 10 on third down and 10 penalties. That's how you come away with the victory. If you told me that they were 2 for 10 on third down and 10 penalties and they lost this game, I would have said, you can't win a playoff game having 10 penalties and going 2 for 10 on third down. I mean, that would be the foundation of my argument. I would say it's not possible, guys. You can't win games if you go 2 for 10 on third down and have 10 penalties. It's not going to cut it in the playoffs. It's not going to cut it. And yet it cut it here. And it's just like, it's wildly impressive. It's wildly impressive. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Los Angeles Rams, how they were able to come away with this victory, Matthew Stafford's performance, and, just the Rams as a whole? Are you surprised? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.